The global economy is currently holding its breath because a single miscalculation in the Middle East has turned a 3-week military operation into a potential decades-long catastrophe. You were told this would be a quick win, a surgical strike to decapitate leadership and bring a regime to its knees, but the reality on the ground is proving to be a brutal slap in the face to Washington's elite. By the end of this deep dive, you are going to understand the specific strategic blunders that have led to the closure of the world's most important energy artery, and why seasoned diplomats are now sounding the alarm that the situation must stop before it reaches a point of no return. This isn't just about politics. It's about a fundamental misunderstanding of an enemy that views this conflict as an existential battle for survival. Before we break down the tactical errors, I need your help to prove a point to a close friend of mine who lives in Singapore. He recently told me that I wouldn't even reach 100 subscribers because he thinks people only care about shallow news bites rather than deep, meaningful stories like this one. I told him he was wrong because I believe this community supports the truth and wants to see independent voices thrive. If you believe this story is worth sharing and you want to help me show him that we stand together, please hit that like button and subscribe right now so we can prove that informed audiences still exist. To understand why this war was a mistake from day one, you have to look at the massive gap between the administration's stated goals and the actual results 3 weeks into the fighting. We were promised a timeline of 4 to 6 weeks for a total resolution, yet the escalation ladder is only growing taller while the global economy begins to bleed. Later in this video, I'm going to reveal the specific internal warnings from the State Department that were ignored during the build-up to this conflict. But first, we have to talk about the Overton window and why the options for peace are rapidly disappearing. When the bombs started falling, the primary justification was the neutralization of a nuclear threat. But experts who have spent their lives at the negotiating table are now confirming that the nuclear program was already effectively contained. If the goal wasn't just the nuclear program, what was it? Many analysts believe the administration fell for a decades-old argument that regime collapse could be triggered by a sudden, massive assault. It's the Venezuela model, applied to a country of 93 million people with a highly organized military exoskeleton. Do you honestly believe that killing a leader results in a peaceful transition, or does it more often lead to a failed state that exports chaos for generations? Consider the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow waterway that handles the preponderance of the world's liquid energy. By starting this war, the administration essentially handed Iran the keys to the global economy. They realized that their only strategic deterrence was to cause disproportionate economic pain, and they have done exactly that. We are now seeing oil prices dance at levels that threaten to trigger a global recession, and the leverage is entirely in the hands of a side that has nothing left to lose. It is a textbook case of miscalculating an opponent's willingness to escalate indiscriminately when they feel their back is against the water. A former high-level diplomat recently shared a perspective that resonates with anyone who understands the region. He said that you cannot bomb a country into a democracy. It's a lesson we should have learned in Iraq, yet here we are, marginalizing the very moderates we once sought to negotiate with. By turning this into a hot war, we haven't empowered the youth of Iran. We have empowered the most radical elements of the Revolutionary Guard. These younger members are products of a system, more ideological and more hardline than the generation that preceded them. They aren't looking for a sweet deal or a business exit. They are fighting for the only world they have ever known. Let's look at the yes ladder for a second. You want a stable economy, right? You want to avoid another endless war in the Middle East that costs trillions of dollars. And you probably believe that military action should only be a last resort when all diplomatic avenues have failed? If you agree with those 3 points, then you can see why this current path is a direct contradiction to America's national interest. The administration claims the war is winding down, but their own supplements to that statement suggest we are only at the halfway mark of a timeline that is already looking wildly optimistic. There is a persistent myth that the Iranian people will welcome the bombs as a tool of liberation. While it is true that many are dissatisfied with their government, just as many Americans are dissatisfied with theirs, dissatisfaction does not automatically equate to a desire for anarchy. When the internet is cut off and troops are in the streets, the priority for the average citizen becomes survival, not insurrection. The regime knows this and has mobilized its repressive apparatus with terrifying efficiency. They are willing to kill thousands of their own citizens to maintain power, a grim reality that the planners in Washington seem to have overlooked in their magical thinking phase. One of the most concerning aspects of this conflict is the total sidelining of expertise. In previous decades, a massive analytical apparatus would gather intelligence and present a range of policy options to the president. Today, the process has been inverted. Decisions are made at the highest level based on gut feelings and personal loyalty, and only then is the bureaucracy told to implement them. This eradication of collective expertise is why we are seeing metrics for success change every few days. First, it was about nuclear sites, then it was about regime decapitation. Now it is about mowing the grass to prevent future attacks. When the goals keep shifting, it's a clear sign that there was no plan for the day after. If you were calling the shots, would you continue to pour resources into a region that the national security strategy recently labeled as secondary to the pivot toward Asia? This war is actually contrary to the administration's own stated strategic objectives. It is a distraction that weakens our position in the Pacific and drains our stockpiles of precision munitions. We are essentially doing the heavy lifting for regional allies who have their own agendas, while we take the hit to our international reputation and our domestic economy. The contrast between the negotiated settlement approach and the unilateral capitulation approach is stark. Diplomacy requires both sides to take the process seriously, but the current atmosphere is one of forced submission. Iran correctly realizes that without strategic deterrence, they will be subject to ongoing military assaults. Their response is to try and change the strategic equation permanently, which means they won't stop until they've proven that attacking them comes with an unacceptable price tag. We have created a cycle of violence where each success on the battlefield only ensures a more radicalized response in the future. The climax of this blunder is the potential for Iran to become a failed state. Some argue that this is exactly what certain regional players want, an Iran so broken it can no longer project power. But a failed state of 93 million people is not a win for the West. It is a vacuum that will be filled by extremism, human suffering, and a permanent disruption of global trade. We are witnessing the collapse of decades of diplomatic work, all for a quick win that was never actually on the table. We are closing the loops now. The nuclear threat was already being managed before the bombs started falling. The quick win has turned into a 3-week-plus quagmire. The global economy is being held hostage by the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, and the expertise needed to navigate a way out has been intentionally discarded. The path forward is not more escalation. It is a realization that we have blotted our copybooks so severely that first, we must simply do no more harm. The payoff of this entire situation is a hard truth. There is no neat solution or mission accomplished banner coming. The damage to our reputation and the goodwill of the people in the region will take decades to repair. The diplomat's warning is clear: stop now. Stop the bombing, force the allies to stop, and begin the slow, painful process of minimizing our footprint before we are dragged even deeper into the abyss. To summarize the key takeaways, this war was a preventable miscalculation based on flawed intelligence and the sidelining of regional experts. It has created an economic crisis through the closure of the Strait of Hormuz that the U.S. cannot solve through air power alone. And finally, the continued escalation only serves to empower the most radical elements of the Iranian regime. If you found this analysis valuable and you want to keep receiving deep dives into the stories the mainstream media won't tell you, please hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video. Your support is the only reason this channel can exist. Let me know in the comments, do you think it's time to stop the strikes, or do you believe the quick win is still possible? Let's have a real conversation below. This has been the Trump Report, and I will see you in the next one.